Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest panel discussion. Today, we're talking about developing resilience in logistics and supply chain. We're excited to be here at the Pacific Trade Conference and looking forward to bringing an exciting, interactive discussion with the information you need to succeed in supply chain now and in the future. Today, I'm joined by Hugo Fuentes and Demo Perez to talk about one of the most important issues in supply chain right now, given the COVID situation, and that is resilience. The pandemic has highlighted a number of industry issues, from supply chain vulnerability to the importance of diversification. So we're really going to get into that today and talk about what learnings we can take away from this and apply to our own businesses to ensure we're much more robust should any more big challenges come our way in the future. So my name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain and CEO of Ships, and I will be your moderator today. I think we're going to be taking questions throughout the discussion, so be sure to comment, send us your thoughts, questions, and we'll discuss as many as we can along the way. So let's give a warm welcome to our panelists, Hugo and Demo. Hey, guys.
Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Sarah.
Yeah, I hope you're ready for some lively discussion today. So let's get into introductions, starting with you, Hugo. Can you tell us who you are, what you do, and the one thing people don't know about logistical resilience?
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Well, thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much, Carolina, for having me. My name is Hugo. I consider myself a supply chain believer. So let me explain why. So I think I believe we live in a very complex world today. Mm-hmm. So complexity is increasing. It's not decreasing. That's my perspective. And despite we have much more technology and much more stuff in general than our ancestors, I think we have created more complex societies. Now, this same thing applies for companies. So if you think about complexity, increasing complexity for the average company, I think consumers want more. Stakeholders want more, everyone wants more. So it's becoming really challenging. So in a world like that, I believe that we need to empower problem solvers. And problem solvers are people that is really get us better off as a society, as companies. And I truly believe that supply chain people, in essence, are problem solvers. So that's why I'm a supply chain believer, because I believe that if we move people, supply chain professionals, to the core of organizations, we're going to be better off as an organization and society.
Yeah, now, and empower them to make those decisions.
Exactly, and that's what I consider myself, a supply chain believer. And if you think about it, there's organizations that are already moving, supply chains to the core. And examples are like Amazon, examples are like Apple, their CEO is a former COO executive in the company. So companies that have already realized that moving supply chain to the core, it makes them better as an organization. Now, today, I'm the CEO of a company called The Owl Solutions. So we are a group of supply chain and data freaks, I would say, right? So for people that, as an example, and what do we do? For people that, think about this analogy, for people that want to monitor, their health and wellness, what they do today, they buy an Apple Watch, and download a few apps to keep track of things like, their heart rate, their sleep, the calorie burn, etc. So we do the same thing, but for companies in their supply chain. So for companies that want to monitor their supply chain health, so they subscribe to our service, and we actually provide them with, the constant monitoring of those, parameters that tell you if your supply chain is healthy or not.
Awesome. Demo, your turn. Tell us who you are and what you do, and then we want to know about logistical resilience.
Well, I am Demóstenes Perez. Everybody call me Demo. I'm from Panama. I have been born and raised here in Panama. I'm in the logistics business. I have over 20 years on this beautiful industry that I love, and currently I am the Chief Commercial Officer of IPL Group, which is logistics operator that supports global companies that uses the Panama Logistics platform as their main distribution point for Latin America. So I am a business developer and specifically in this industry. And about resilience in the supply chain is something that now became one of the most important qualifications of a company. Resilience is in the personal aspect, it's a skill. But in the company, it's a qualification for a company. If you're not a resilient company, that means that your business could go off in a very short term. So companies now need to practice this kind of um, capabilities of being resilient, and the whole supply chain as a whole needs to be a resilient because, and especially now, COVID is the most closer experience of being in the short term of having a crash. So I believe that this is one of the most important qualities of a company right now.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more on that. So we've got a lot to get through and not a lot of time. So let's start with you, Hugo. What challenges have COVID-19 really unleashed in supply chain and logistics? And what's the overall impact? What are you seeing with your clients?
Yeah, so that's a great question because over the last months, personally, I've been having a lot of discussions with company CEOs and people in the supply chain space. And there's a few things that I wanted to summarize and bring to the table, and maybe open a dialogue with you, with Demo, in terms of what do you guys think about it. But a couple of things. Number one is scenario planning. So the ability of organizations to really understand the various scenarios that can play in different situations, understand the risk profile of the organization. So therefore, really understanding if the decisions that you're making are only driven by the cost, or are you really considering, all the variables like cost, risk, flexibility, agility, lead time. So supply chain, as you know, is a trade-off game. I mean, it's a matter of, you have to balance a lot of variables. It's not like, you make a decision for one variable and that's it. Normally you have to balance. There's always an impact on whatever you do. So one of the things that I've learned is the importance of, and I've been listening from people about this, the importance of really getting to know the details of your supply chain in detail. And I'm going to bring an example which I found very interesting. Someone gave me this example. Someone told me, think about sports. Think about NBA as an example, right? So let's take the NBA. Do you think that the coaches in the NBA they plan every game equally, or they have a lot of different strategies, and they analyze every single player performance, they analyze the rivals performance in every single situation, so they have a lot of different scenarios already planned around how that game potentially is going to happen, right? So understanding that level of detail, I think I'm using the example of sports, but I think in supply chain we're not there yet. In my opinion, I think we need to get much more understand much more in detail, our supply chains better than we do today, and maybe take some of the examples that come from sports and other disciplines, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just finished reading Mamba Mentality by Kobe Bryant, and just looking at how he really approached sports, we could do the same thing in supply chain as well. So, Demo, do you have any examples of challenges that you're experiencing or hearing from your customers that you can share with us today?
Yeah, I think one of the most common things that we are hearing these days is about inventory. In the past, a few months ago, inventory was, having inventory was like a bad word from the CIO's perspective, and we always, or the customers all wanted to be just in time, right? And now it's totally different. So now they want to have those inventories just in case, right? And we are seeing how understanding those scenarios and planning without having the correct data and the correct technology for network analysis and for inventory planning is one of the biggest things coming. So we are seeing that right now. Now forecast is something from the past. Nobody's capable to build a forecast right now because we don't know how the markets are going to react, what the products, and if you add a consumer now buying things using the mobile devices, bring more challenges to a company like us, for example, that we manage inventories, right, and order management. So yeah, these are times really interesting and changing in terms of all what we used to learn and the way we used to manage logistics for our customers.
Yeah, it's very uncertain, and I think it's a learning curve for everybody. Into some of the solutions, but I want to ask you, Demo, because you're in Panama, what are you seeing from a Latin America perspective as far as diversification of supply chains and manufacturing? What are the solutions that people are looking to that region for?
Well, Latin America, it's a very complex market, if we can call that a market, because it's over 25, 30 countries, and it's very complex. And typically, the major markets are Mexico and Brazil. And in those two countries, there is very developed manufacturing. In the case of Brazil, that manufacturing is to serve Brazil. In the case of Mexico, is to serve Mexico and US and Canada. But the rest of Latin America have been receiving a lot of products from Asia, mainly from China. And now with all these changes we are seeing and reshoring, now companies are trying to find where to establish those additional manufacturing plants. We cannot say that they will shut down what they have in China, because that is not a reality, but they need to diversify those points of manufacturing. So there is a competition between the countries to get attractive or to be attractive for these global OEMs and manufacturing companies to establish operations somewhere in Latin America. Of course, in the case of Panama, we have a huge advantage because we are a logistics hub, right? And there are some areas where Panama is not stronger than Costa Rica, for example, or Colombia, because those are more industrialized countries. Panama is a service-based economy, but the logistics cost here and the agility of the complete platform is really good for these companies to establish. And now, as the ambassador mentioned in the previous presentation she did in this event, now we get a special benefit for global companies to establish manufacturing operations here, so they can bring both technology and talent that we don't have. So trying to emulate what happened in Singapore years ago, right, where they were capable to bring the people, the technical skills, and then build it locally. That's what we are trying to get as a country.
I think that's smart. I mean, when I visited Panama last year already, holy moly, it seems like 5 years ago. Between the free trade zones and the Panama Canal and the effort that you guys are putting into supply chain over there is commendable, and how you are a gateway to Latin America. Hugo, I want to send it over to you. You're hearing all sorts of challenges from your customers. So what are some examples of action plans that you guys are putting together for them?
Yeah, so a couple of things that, and actually, touching exactly the point that the demo mentioned before. So inventory planning. So inventory is today a hot topic, definitely, and companies are somehow changing this. And you even mentioned the term. So from just-in-time inventory management to just-in-case inventory management, which I mean, if you ask my opinion about that, I believe that it should have always been the case. I mean, in the sense of that the reason you have an inventory strategy in place because you want to cover your uncertainties. So a good inventory strategy has to be a just in case inventory strategy per se, right, from my perspective. Now, a couple of challenges, specific challenges. I think the decision-making process. So the speed of the decision-making process. So I think there's a realization in many organizations that, moving to hopefully closer to near to real-time decision-making by having, information available or the tools or whatever is something that is becoming more and more critical. And so the pace of decisions in the world is running so fast that maybe the past tools and behaviors that we had running our supply chains is not enough for what's going on today. So I think the realization that real time is really critical for the success of operating modern supply chains is one critical aspect. And I think the other concrete example. So I think it's understanding your supplier base not only to the tier 1 level, but understanding tier 1, tier 2, 3, and 3, and all the way down your supply chain.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just establish collaborative relationship with your tier 1 supplier. You have to always go a step further and try to understand from where these guys are supplying, what are their risks, and hopefully integrate that supply chain, down to the tier 2, tier 3 suppliers.
Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, we asked a question of the week a couple of weeks ago. What's the most important thing that you're working on in your supply chain strategy? And the number one answer was communication. Right? Is working on the communication, enhancing your communication, not only internally, but externally. And really, because you've got to be able to be agile, be able to pivot, be able to empower your people to make the right decisions or the wrong decisions, but be able to learn from those. And then again, enhancing that communication all the way down the line of your supply chains to really make an impact and make a difference.
100%, and I think communication is such a critical thing internally within the organization. Even within organizations today, I think people has realized that. And let me provide you one example. In my discussions with people, so I realized and I counted the number of companies that before the crisis they had a sales and operations planning process in place before the crisis. And out of 100, as an example, out of 100 companies, most of the companies that went through this crisis, in a better shape, ended up in a better shape that those that were more disrupted. The companies that had an S&OP process in place were better off, and simply because the S&OP, what it does as a process, as a business process, is connect the dots, facilitate communication. Streamline communications internally in the organization. Yeah. So, that's an example of communication.
Absolutely. Demo, I'm going to throw it over to you for a second. What are you seeing as far as strategic partnerships and, coming out of COVID? I've been seeing a lot of collaboration, companies coming together to collaborate more. So what are you seeing that's making the biggest impact in building strategic business relationships in logistics and supply chain?
I need to start with a phrase that you use commonly and I love, which is collaboration is the future of business.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe in that. And today, competition is something really serious. In the past, we're like a nice word, but now companies alone cannot try to cover everything. We are seeing a lot of competitors now collaborating, helping each other to move. You see the shipping lines. Now you see a full color of different containers in a ship. Even biggest competitors ever doing that. So I believe today we need to work a lot as an individuals in this industry, and I believe everybody, but especially in our industry, we need to work hard to keep the current relations we have, the network we have. We need to work harder to build new ones. and keep that network working, because right now the world is becoming smaller in this kind of things, because you don't know where you will need someone to support you in a link of the supply chain. So I really believe that we need to have a part of our time dedicated just to strong our relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of audience questions that I'm going to get to in a minute. So I just want to ask you guys a couple more things before we get into those. So if anybody has any questions, please make sure to put it into the chat. I don't think it's an actual Q&A. I think it's the chat. So put it in there and we'll get to those. One of the important things, obviously, that is coming out of COVID is talent. Right. And you know, taking a look at what skills that we need from our supply chain talent moving ahead into the future. So for people looking to get into supply chain or improve their skills, what would be your career advice? I'm going to start with you, Hugo. And I'm just going to drop in there that I saw in an article probably about a month or so ago that inventory management was actually the biggest skill that people should be looking into. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on that.
You know, I think that's a great point. And let me provide a little bit of, you know, short background to this question from my perspective. You know, one of the biggest challenges globally today, if we leave for 1 minute, you know, COVID aside, and we concentrate on, you know, challenges moving forward for, you know, global supply chains, is the lack or the shortage of supply chain professionals with the skills that are required to operate what is called the modern supply chains. Mm-hmm. So here are the three skills that are required for, you know, supply chain professionals in now and in the future. Number one, experience. Definitely, experience is an asset, right? So if you are an experienced person that has know-how in a certain specific process or in general, that's something that is an asset for you. So keep it improving. Second is analytical skills. So the analytical skills, the critical thinking, the ability to challenge the assumptions and understand and connect the dots. That's a second critical, you know, skill. And third is the digital skills. So being able to interact with different technologies, different, you know, environments. So at least, and it's getting harder for organizations to find, attract, and retain that talent, because it's not easy. It's not easy to find a person that, you know, has experience in supply chain, digital skills, analytical skills, all at once. Now, my advice could be, you know, for people, you know, wanting to get into supply chain. So inventory management is one discipline that I totally agree with that. I think that's one thing. The other thing is anything that has to do with understanding how leveraging technology can add value to your process is something extremely valuable. So this idea of digital transformation, I personally prefer to use the term digital evolution rather than digital transformation. I think it's less scary. It's less scary, right? So it's transformation. It's like, you know, oh, you get paralyzed.
Yeah.
But if you think about evolution instead of transformation, so digital skills, analytical skills, and of course the experience in the process.
Yeah, and when you talk about experience, I've been speaking to a lot of supply chain management students, and I think, you know, I really want to throw it out there that we need to be able to provide more internships and ways for the next generation to really get their hands on that experience, because it is so important and they have so much to bring to the table. We need to start doing a little bit more in that regard. Demo, anything to add?
No, I just want to say that one of the good things that this crisis have gave us is that now the supply chain is something that you hear in the news. 6 months ago, we never think about that, and now it's, you know, now we are number one citizens again. You know, and you hear, you know, ministers and presidents using the term supply chain. Before, probably where logistics were more used, and now people know that having the correct supply chain will impact their lives.
Yeah.
So now people see a truck driver or a worker in a warehouse with the same importance as a nurse. Because if those goods or those vaccines or those medicines are not on the shelf or not on the hospital, uh, their lives will be in risk. So I believe that we need to take advantage of that advertising of our industry and sell it more to people because as you said, people was students, young students were looking into this because they were something called their attention, but now there is more broad, what we can do because we're not just moving cargo, we are not just receiving containers.
Yeah.
We do a lot of things, and
So much.
now, yeah, and people now understand a little more what we do. We're not just those naughty people talking about numbers and containers, right? So I think that will help us a lot in bringing more interest to our industry and to invite more young people to follow this beautiful path.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to get to questions right now, and then I'm going to ask you guys one more question before we leave. So, Maria Nunez says, do you think that customers are ready to use devices to manage their supplies in Latin America? Demo, I think that one's for you.
To use devices?
Yeah, to use devices. So it sounds like technology devices,
Yeah.
because I think you had mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. Technology is here to stay, and every day is stronger. We need to add. One of the challenges we face in Latin America is the usage or the apply of global standards. We are the kings of inventing things. Every country have a different rules or different process, and try to fix, to invent the wheel again. And that's a huge fail that we face because, for example, trying to implement a control tower service or a proper inventory planning, I mean regional, it's really hard because we cannot get the proper data, or the data is not clean. So that's the problem when you don't apply global standards on that, and it's really hard to get connectivity between customs or connectivity between even ports, and digitization in our I think the digital evolution. I will use it. I will take it from you, Hugo.
I'm going to use it too.
Yeah.
Hugo, we're both going to use that word.
Yeah, transformation.
Let's use it.
Transformation is terrifying for many people.
Hmm.
So that evolution, we got the technology already. We got everything, but something is happening that we cannot just connect, and that is going to the basis. We need to have better data. We need to have global standards implemented in each country to be able to bring that technology that companies like the Hugo runs offers. For me, I've been trying to implement control towers in Latin America, and it's really hard compared what you see in Europe or in the US or in North America because there is no connectivity. So this is not a question of not having the technology because we already have it, and it's every day is cheaper and easier to get. Right?
Yeah. Really great point. Really great point. Okay, so 30 seconds each. What is the one takeaway that you would like the audience to walk away from this discussion today? Hugo, start with you.
Yeah, I mean, my key takeaway is saying, we need to get more and more companies moving supply chain to the core of the decision-making process. I mean, getting the people at the center. Supply chain people are problem solvers, people that can solve and get your company better off. And people is key. I work in a technology company, but I can tell you that people is key. People at the center, process and technology come after.
Awesome. Demo, what's your one key takeaway?
I agree with that, and also social distancing and wearing safety equipment is here to stay. Also, we need to plan every operation now. Need to be planned considering those elements. For light manufacturing, for servicing, we need to consider all those elements and also not only in the execution but in the cost. So it's important to say that.
Absolutely. So that's it for today's panel discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it and gained some useful insights that you can take back to your own companies to help you analyze and improve the resilience in your own logistics and supply chain. A big thank you to everyone who joined us for this session, asked questions over on social media, webinar, and another big thank you to Pacific Trade and Carolina. And then, of course, Hugo and Demo. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Demo.
Thank you, Sarah.